Good morning, children, and welcome to the class. Now, before we begin this session, let me ask you something. What is the logo of TPS? Yes, I'm sure you would remember it very well. The logo is Service Before Self. Now, what does it mean? Service before self means selfless service. When we are thinking of others before we think of our own self. So we say selfless service. What is the opposite of selfless? Yes, it is selfish. So now, does this word sound good to you? Selfish. What are the kind of people you call selfish? Think about it. Do you have a very high opinion of such people? You say he's a very selfish boy. I don't like him. She's a very, very selfish lady. Doesn't look good to me at all. Okay? So the word selfish is related with people who are not so concerned about thoughts and feelings and the comfort of other people. And anybody can say it. A selfish person is not at all a good person, right? So today we are going to study about not about a selfish person but about a selfish giant. Giant itself is a not so good word, and in addition to that we are giving a bad attribute to the giant, and we say the selfish giant. Just think what the story would be: a giant, and on top of it, a selfish giant. But let me tell you, it is a heart wrenching story. Because when selfish people, they also get transformed and converted into nice souls, and then they become gem of a person, right? This is what the story is about. And although it is a art of fiction, it is a tale of fiction, even then it is a classic story by a classic writer, Oscar Wilde. Okay? So it becomes pertinent that we know certain things about the writer, the author, Oscar Wilde. Let us just have a look at some of the works of Oscar Wilde and what all his contributions were. So, Oscar Wilde, he was an Irish poet and playwright, and then after writing so many different pieces of literature, he became one of the most popular playwrights in London. When you look at these famous works of Oscar Wilde, just look at the first work, The Happy Prince and Other Stories. The Happy Prince is also a part of your literature, and it's in your Moments book in class 9. So, if you are interested to read this, you can always borrow a class 9 book and get going with the story. Now, this has been incorporated in the NCERT books because it is another wonderful fairy story written by Oscar Wilde, and it is also a very heart touching story for children. I do recommend it to you. And then you can have a look at other works of Oscar Wilde which are quite famous till date. Now we come to the chapter. We always set certain objectives when we read the chapter, when we do the chapter. So, what are the objectives of your chapter? Now, this story, because it is purely a fairy tale, it's not a true story. It is just written keeping in mind what all values the reader can inculcate or think of, you know. So, you can just think of an alternative ending to the story. That would be a very creative thing to do. Okay. Second objective, you will be able to use new words and phrases in your own language. There is rich vocabulary in this chapter, and pick at least some of the good vocab words and try to use in your day to day language. Then, of course, you are honing your listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills to the chapter. You listen to the value points, the key points that I am explaining to you right now, also. Then you speak and discuss about certain things. Of course, you have read the chapter, and lastly, you will come down to writing certain things related to the chapter. So, another objective is to hone your listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. Then, as I discussed in the very beginning, you should be able to discuss at ease your personal experiences regarding some selfish people or some acts of people who display a selfless behavior in certain situations, and how these two categories of people impact everyone else in the society. Then, of course, the basic underlying grammatical accuracy is to be, incorporated in your work, and you should be able to do that. Okay, now we come to the new words, because I presume that you have already read the chapter. We discuss the new words or the vocab words with you today. Your first word is giant. As I discussed with you in the beginning, giant is also a not so good word. So, giant means a demon, and we are very much familiar with the iconic character Ravan. Ravan was as tall and big as a giant. From the word giant, you have another good word which you can note, and that is gigantic. Huge. Okay? Gigantic. Look at the pronunciation. Word is giant, and another related word is gigantic. Another word, similar word is colossal. Huge. Okay? Then we have a Cornish ogre, a giant of Cornwall in the UK. Who is an ogre? Who is an ogre? These again are legendary or fairy tale characters. Again, a cruel giant who eats people. It's a very, very frightening and grotesque figure. Now, our third word is gruff. I give you a tip to remember this word, gruff. What is the last part of the word itself sounding? Rough. Okay? So, gruff itself means rough. Now, speak it up. Gruff and rough. Got it? So, gruff and rough. Okay. Another similar word of gruff could be hoarse. This is usually related to somebody's voice. He spoke in a gruff voice. He spoke in a hoarse voice. And when we come to surfaces, we say coarse. Easy. Hoarse and coarse. The surface of the road connecting this village is gruff and harsh. The surface is coarse. It is not so smooth. Your next word, this is important, keeping in mind your chapter, trespassers. Those who illegally enter somebody's land or property and the intentions are not good. They are called trespassers. So, when you enter somebody's land or property without his or her permission, you become a trespasser. The example is, this boy is the trespasser of the premises as he has entered the boundary without permission of the owner. Your next word is prosecuted. Prosecuted means punished but legally, right? Somebody who is tried in a court of law. The person who is involved in the crime shall be prosecuted in the court of law. So just remember, most important thing, prosecuted is punished but in a legal procedure. So for your school events, for your indiscipline incidents, we cannot use the word prosecuted. Please be disciplined, otherwise you will be prosecuted, will be a wrong usage in the context of your school. We just say you will be punished. But when some legal background is there, we say prosecuted. Then we have certain contextual words like snow, frost, north, wind, hail. Of course, these are just used for the setting of the chapter, and they act like kinds of characters and persons. Then we have linnet. Linnet. Linnet is a small bird which sings beautiful songs, mellifluous songs. So linnet is a brownish songbird found in Europe. The little linnet sang a song in a melodious voice. Use it as a tongue twister also and have fun with each other. The little linnet sang a song in a melodious voice. Then we have casement. Casement is a window that opens on hinges like a door. Open the casement to get fresh air and light of outside. So the casements are broadly for ventilation. These are the windows that open on hinges like a door. Stole up. Now, steal word you normally associate with the act of stealing, and stole is used as its past form. But another usage of it is, to do something without being noticed or without making any noise. So, another word which is related to this and very important is stealthily. Stealthily. Okay? Stealthily. Steal, look at this. Steal and then continue. Stealthily. So, stole up means to come quietly without being noticed. Then your next word is feeble. Feeble, weak. The boy has not eaten anything for the whole day and has become feeble and weak. Another correlated word could be timid. Okay, timid. Then we have slay, a nice word for the chapter. Slay means to kill. The cruel king in his judgment ordered to slay the prisoner. So slay simply means to kill. Very important key points of the chapter. Now children, when we do a chapter, broadly we should divide it into two sections for taking your notes in your classwork notebooks. So you split it into two sections. One is character analysis. As many characters are there in the chapter, and as many characters which are very important in the chapter, you should write the related adjectives in your classwork notebook. Okay, you should know about the character deeply. The second section could be of events. What all is happening in the story and what all it is leading to, right? So in this chapter, The Selfish Giant, we broadly have two characters. One is, of course, the selfish giant, which is the pivotal character of the chapter, and the other is a little boy who comes to transform the selfish giant into a noble one, right? So we can write adjectives related to the characters and then the events. Through key points also, I will try to discuss these things in the same manner with you, right? So our first key point is yes, when the story starts, a giant had a large beautiful garden. He was selfish. This. So we get the adjective for the giant. He was selfish. Other words you have to find out for selfish, like he was self centered giant, he was egoistic, he was ruthless. All these things you have to note down about the giant. Point number 2. While he was away to visit a friend, children used to play in the garden. Now, what is this? This is your event number 1. Okay? While he was away to visit a friend, what happened? Seeing the garden unoccupied and vacant, children used to play in the garden. Children are children. They'll always find ways to happiness. Whatever makes them happy, they tend to do that. Okay. So your next point is another event. Event number 2. Right? When the giant returned, he was angry to see the children playing there. Another word for angry could be furious. He was red with rage. So when the giant returned, he was angry to see the children playing there. What was the reaction? What did this event lead to? It led to third event. What was it? He built a high wall around the garden so that the children could not come in. Now he has barricaded the entire area. This again has some repercussion. What is it? As a result, the trees refused to bear flowers and fruits. Spring refused to visit his garden. This is your event number 4. So what happened? God became annoyed. So what do we learn from this? God is never happy with selfish people. So we should not be selfish. Rather, we should keep in mind the logo of our school, service before self. Then what happened? Only the frost, the hail, the north wind and snow danced the whole year. Now students, we have so many seasons to enjoy, and imagine if round the year you have just one extreme season. How would you feel? If from January to December it is just harsh summer season, how would you feel? If Jan to December it is just chilly winter season, nothing else, how would you feel wearing woolens and woolens round the year? Or else, if Jan to December it's it's monsoon season with lot of mosquitoes and filth and humidity around, how would you feel? So here, through this key point, we also should learn to value all the seasons and the cycle of nature. God has gifted us with a variety, and also these things are so soothing when seasons change. They add more color, more comfort to our lives. We should always appreciate these things. But in the giant's case, it was different. It was frost, hail, and snow whole year round. These were the things to be seen. Then what happened? So, giant was surprised. What is this happening? And then one day, he saw that again there were flowers were blooming in a corner. What did he see? Some children had again crept in through a hole, and then he realized, oh my God, this is because of children that there are flowers blooming in my garden. And then there was this little boy standing in the corner and crying. The giant was intrigued. Why was the boy crying? So he helped the little boy, he lifted him up, he helped him sit on a tree branch, and he noticed the miracle. You have to find out. What was the miracle? The moment the boy was placed on the tree was laden with beautiful, colorful flowers and fruits. Okay, so what a beautiful sight. This is a significant event. The tree was laden with flowers even in winter. The boy was Christ Himself. Then what? Then the boy bore nail marks on his palms and feet. What does this indicate? Lord Christ, Jesus Christ Himself. You remember He was crucified? His hands, His palms, and His feet, they were nailed on the cross. So, He was Christ Himself. He kissed the giant whose heart was changed. Now the transformation took place because God Himself was there. So the giant changed completely, and now he let the children play freely in his garden. He told the children, "This garden is all yours. Feel free to play. Be happy." So selfless people are like this only, students. They love to share. So you need to remember, when you share your things, when you share your joys with your friends, your joys multiply. And even when you share your things with somebody who needs those things, even then you feel immensely satisfied and happy. So the joy of sharing, that you need to observe every day in your homes also. When you share your important things with your siblings, you should feel that joy and encourage yourselves to keep on sharing. And then what happened after this event? The giant grew very old. Of course, his last moments arrived, and he yearned to see that little boy in his life. And then at last the little boy came. Now, why he had come during his last moments? To take him, to escort him. Where? To the paradise. Okay, so at last the little boy took the giant to his own garden, the paradise, as a reward. Reward of what? Reward of selflessness. Right? Now, if here the giant would have continued to be selfish, he would have been punished also. Beware of this. Okay. Then is the summary. This is a detailed summary. Because we have discussed the value points, we will discuss the summary quickly and then see what is the message we get from it. So, a giant had a beautiful garden. It had soft green grass and 12 peach trees. School children used to visit it to play there in the evening when they came from school. Once, the giant went out to see his friend Cornish Ogre. He stayed at his house for 7 years. After this, he returned to his own castle. To his surprise, he found the children playing in the garden. "My garden is my own garden," he said to himself. Remember, students? He spoke these words in a gruff voice. "My garden is my own garden." So he built a high wall around it and then he put up a notice board declaring that trespassers will be prosecuted. This is your key line or the main main quote in the chapter, so you have to just memorize it. Trespassers will be prosecuted. It was clear that he had become selfish. Rather, it was clear that he was selfish. Now the children felt very sad. They had no place to play, so they played outside the garden around the wall. Time went on. In the spring, flowers grew all over, but in Giant's garden there was no spring. There was no summer also. It was always winter here. Neither birds nor flowers could be seen there. Only snow and frost covered the trees. The giant wondered as to why there was no spring in his garden. So once the giant lay in his bed awake, he heard a sweet music. A little linnet. Remember our tongue twister? So, a little linnet, this is alliteration also. L and L. A little linnet sang outside his window. The music appealed to him. The sweet smell of flowers passed through his nostrils. He saw the most wonderful sight. Very important. It may be asked from you. What? What was the most wonderful sight? Okay. So he saw the most wonderful sight. Children had crept in through a hole. Children sat on branches. The trees were covered with flowers. In the farthest corner of the garden, a little boy was sitting. He was too small to climb on the branch. He cried bitterly. The giant went up to him and kissed him. He picked him up and placed him on a branch. And now that tree again was full of beautiful flowers. So the giant knocked down the garden wall. He felt sorry for building it. When the children saw him, they ran away. The garden became winter like again. He called out to the children and said, "It's your garden. Come and play freely." In the evening, when they came to him to say goodbye, he asked them about the child, the little child. They said they did not know. The giant loved him the most. Why? You should know this. Try to take note of this. Why did the giant love the little child the most? Okay. Now, due to children's frequent visits, the spring returned. Many years passed. The giant had become old. He could not play any more. One day, suddenly, he saw the little child he had loved. He went downstairs and walked near him. However, he felt angry to see his wounded palms and feet. On asking who had wounded him, he replied, "These are wounds of love." At this, The giant fell on his feet. I'll let you play in my garden, which is paradise, said the little child, because you let me play in your garden once. So, God is returning love to the person, to the giant who showed a gesture of love once, long back. In the evening, when the children visited the garden, they saw the giant lying dead. So, isn't it a heart wrenching story, children? But we have to take the beautiful life skills, the beautiful values from this chapter, and then this story will forever remain with us. Now, these are some short questions. If you wish, you can take notes in your classwork notebooks. You have to match the column A with their meanings in column B. Prosecute. Clearly, it's given to take legal action. Prosecute means to take legal action. Then trespasser, this is your word, intruder. Okay, who enters without your permission. Hasten, to walk quickly. Haste, okay. Hail is what falls off eyes, and slay is what? Kill. Then write down the opposites of the underlined words. Everyone longs for heaven, but no one longs for hell. I found the ring which my mother had lost. Don't walk slowly, you must hasten to catch the train. The giant felt very sad while the children were happy. They were very happy. Another word could be elated. But elated should not be used with very, because it itself means very happy. Now, some questions. I will just discuss the value points with you. If you wish, you can note these value points in your classwork notebooks. When did the children play in the giant's garden? When he was away to visit his friend, and he was away for 7 years. At that time, the children started playing in his garden. Why did the giant build a high wall round his garden? Because he was a very selfish giant. He could not tolerate children using his garden to play. So, in order to keep the children away, keep the children out of his premises, he built a high wall round his garden. Why was the little boy crying? Because all the children were playing happily in the garden, but he was too small to climb up a tree, and so he was crying. But the deeper reason is he wanted to attract the attention of the giant, because he was Lord Jesus himself and he came with a purpose. What was the purpose? To reform the giant. Why was the giant angry when he came near the child the final time? He was angry because he saw marks of nails on his palms and feet. Then these are the questions which you should do in around 80 words. Write just the value points in your classwork notebooks. Why is the giant called selfish? Because he wanted to keep his garden to himself and he did not want to share it with anybody else. Why did spring not come to the giant's garden? Because God was not at all happy with his attitude of selfishness. So, without children, the spring could not come to his garden. So, we also learn that children are the most beautiful flowers or most beautiful gifts of God. We should not hurt their feelings. Then the giant saw a most wonderful sight. Describe what he saw. Here you refer to your textbook for the factual answer. Write word by word. But the value point is he could see that his garden had blossomed once again. Why did the giant feel sad even when the children came regularly to play in his garden? Because he was missing that little boy who he did not happen to see again after the first day. And actually, the little boy had given him a spark of love. Who was the little boy? The little boy was Lord Jesus himself. How can you say that? Because he had marks of nails on his palms and feet. Where did he take the giant? He took him to the paradise. Why? Because the giant had been very sensitive to the little boy's feelings and he had allowed children to play in his garden. I was talking of this character analysis. So, this sample analysis has been given to you. What kind of a character was the giant? He was a very complex character. It was not at all easy to understand the giant because, on one hand, he was so ruthless and selfish, but on the other hand, his heart melted down in no time. Then he had grotesque. Look at the pronunciation. How will you learn it? QUE. For this, you can have imaginary K while speaking. So, it is pronounced at grotesque. Okay? He had grotesque means ugly. Ugly. Okay. I will do it again for you. Grotesque is ugly, bad. A synonym, an antonym of grotesque is picturesque. Picturesque is beautiful and grotesque is ugly. So he had grotesque physical attributes. He was lonely and secluded. Secluded means he was cut off from the world. He lived all alone. So, over the years, he became devoid of compassion. Devoid. Devoid means he lacked compassion. And then there came a little boy who won his heart. He revived human values in him. He helped him mellow down. Mellow down means to soften, to become soft with time. He helped him mellow down, and now after that, he became loving, selfless, and tender and was chosen by God to live in heaven. What is the message that we get from this? Number one, love is the greatest weapon in this world. Children, pick this message very clearly. In your real life, please do not believe in fighting or in quarreling with other people. Believe in love because love is the greatest weapon in this world. Imagine if a small boy's love could win the heart of such a huge selfish giant. Then is it not possible in our real life too? Try it. Love is the greatest weapon in this world. Message number 2, good deeds never go unrewarded. This is just like hard work. So, good deeds also pay off. They always come back to you. You may believe in God, you may not believe in God, but this is practically also possible that when you are doing a good deed, one thing is you yourself will feel so happy and contented, and the other thing is from somewhere the goodness will return to you. So, good deeds always pay off. And then the final message, I love this part. Children are God's most beautiful gifts in this world. And that is why we, your teachers, love you all so much. I may not have met all of you class 8 children, but I want to tell you I love you all because you are God's most beautiful gifts in this world. So that's all, my dear lovely children. Be beautiful, be kind, be selfless, and have a good day. Lots of love and blessings to you.